I got off the airplane in Fort Collins and it starts to snow. I'm used to saguaro cactuses and maybe seeing a rattlesnake and dust and rocks. And I got off that plane and thought, oh my goodness, it's cold.
Your legs literally won't move it.
So I ended up going to Arizona State University and running track there. And that was interesting too, just recognizing like I was there to do a job. And as soon as I couldn't do the job, that funding was gone. That scholarship was gone.
I was more of the football, baseball, wrestling, basketball, like that kind of. And then we were punished with running, like go run the laps. And so I hated long distance running.
Well, you get to that point though, where it's like you cross the finish line and you look back and it's like, oh yeah, I did that.
Training for hours on end in pain, like people go, oh, that's so hard. I'm like, it's not hard. But I look back, okay, well, 107 degrees, you know, I thought I was gonna die. All right, today I'm having Matt Montoya from Angles and Volkers on the show today. He's just got an interesting background. He was an athlete, track athlete in college. He was a principal and then got into real estate, and I've had, known him a while now and had some good conversations, and I thought he'd be a great person to, show how his athletic background has, created his current career. So
I love it.
Good to have you, man.
Yeah, thanks for having me on the show.
Yeah.
Does it have a title, the show?
The Ryan Bundy podcast right now, but
I like it.
But yeah, man. So tell me, like, let's start in high school, athletes, like athletics, where you went to high school.
Sure.
And then I know you went to Arizona State.
Yeah.
And so just let's start there.
Okay, cool. Yes, went to high school in Phoenix, Arizona.
That's right.
Little school called Paradise Valley High School.
Ooh, fancy.
Kind of North Phoenix area. It actually was the high school my dad attended. So my parents kind of planted roots and I stayed close to home and went to the same school. I recognized probably middle school that I had some talent on the track, and that quickly fostered with really tremendous coaches. But really it started with my dad, just kind of taking me to the track and running me through workouts.
Did you do any other sports, or was that?
I played football my freshman year.
What about young?
Started out playing t-ball, played a little bit of soccer, but really quickly in the elementary years, kind of later elementary years, running field day. The old school field day. Back then, though, it was actual races. Like, we weren't like twisting hula hoops or throwing bean bags. We were running races, and I remember just like smoking people out there. And then in the middle school, that competition got a little stronger. Freshman high school football. At the end of the season, I played quarterback. At the end of the season, they called me up to varsity to be in the playoffs with the big guys.
Wow.
And I remember we made it through the first round, and I was running plays as like backup quarterback at practice, and a giant senior just like lit me up. And I remember getting up off the ground thinking, I don't want to do this. Like, this is not okay to me. And I was quick enough playing ball to where like I could avoid most of the hits. But that one hit at practice was like, whoo,
That was it?
I'm done.
Yeah.
So that was it. Got through that season, and the team didn't win state, but we got pretty far up. But yeah, after that, I decided to run cross country in the fall.
Oh wow, that's a big change, man.
Huge change. But I wanted to do something to stay in shape and stay on my feet. And ended up growing to really appreciate that sport for the mental capacity that I learned. Because I was a quarter miler. I was a 200-meter runner, a 400-meter runner. So to move into cross country, running miles and miles and miles at a time, it allowed me to work some muscles in my brain that I didn't recognize were there.
Yeah, that's interesting that you say that. We could talk more about that because When I was more of the football, baseball, wrestling, basketball, like that kind of, and then we were punished with running,
Okay.
right?
Yeah.
Like go
sure.
run laps.
Yep. Sure.
And so I hated long distance running.
Yeah.
But we'll talk about it later, probably
Yeah.
when we get into our conversation about how that flip flopped later in life with trying to build those muscles that
Sure.
were very weak.
Yeah. Totally.
Yeah. So high school track, like what was it? Quarter mile?
Yeah. 200 and 400.
The 400's brutal.
Brutal. It's the worst thing out there.
Yeah. Butt lock.
It's nonstop until you can't go anymore.
Your legs literally won't move it.
Yeah, I mean, lactic acid became a very, very close friend of mine. Yeah.
So when you're training that on a daily basis, so like if I'm doing some intense, high intensity stuff for training or whatever, I would run 400 meter, and it's like it's awful.
Yeah.
Because I literally have to start off really slow if I'm going to finish without just like walking or
Totally.
almost walking.
Yeah.
Trying to run but can't. You literally
Yeah.
freeze up.
Yes.
So doing that on a daily basis, and I didn't even know our conversation was going to go this way, but it's pretty cool. That's got to be mentally just the running side of it in that capacity and all running, but that is like you're doing that on a daily basis. You're putting yourself through hell. Mentally,
Often.
physically.
Yeah. Often. Yeah. Both mentally and physically,
Yeah.
right? Because
Yeah.
at the beginning, it's more mental because you're not in shape for that. I don't know that many people are built for that race. So mentally, it's getting your mind in shape to be able to stand that pain. Later in the season, it's a little more physical to where you know the areas on that track where you can push yourself a little bit. But at the beginning, it's pretty mental.
Well, just to show up to practice every day, knowing what's ahead of you,
Totally.
you're going, this is going to suck. This is going to suck. This is going to suck. But
And
you
in
show up every day.
and in Arizona, right, where it's 110, 112
it's spring.
degrees. Yeah, spring into summer.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's hot.
Yeah.
I remember summertime workouts after the season had ended. My dad would have me out there, and very frequently I would hear, Matt, if it was easy, there'd be other people out here.
Yeah.
If it was easy, everybody would be doing it. And that has been just planted in the back of my mind, and I think about that at work. When things get tough, it's like, gosh, if it were easy, this office would be full, right? You look around, if it were easy, you'd see other real estate agents out here knocking on doors looking for an off-market property for their client.
Yeah.
So it's that muscle memory has been ingrained for sure.
Yeah. You build those muscles.
Yep.
I hated running. Like I was a total sprinter. Like,
Yeah.
To second base.
Yeah. Right.
60-yard dash, 40-yard dash, dialed. But anything past that, I'm telling you, I was always one of the fastest people, but I was the slowest when we had to run laps.
Yeah.
The guys that were the slowest at sprinting would beat me on that stuff.
Yeah.
So I don't want to talk, I'll just briefly go into this, but I did ultra marathons and do them still periodically to practice those muscles. It's not about, I'm thinking I'm cool, I don't post it on Facebook. It's really about, these are weak muscles, long distance training for hours on end in pain, is something I need to work.
Yeah.
Which, so.
Why would you say that?
Why would I say?
That's something you need to work.
Because life is tough.
Yeah.
And it's long, and it's a marathon, not a race, right?
Yeah, sure.
I think thanks for the question. I think that's a good question, and I think my whole life has been a sprint and rest, and it's hard to be consistent doing that. So I'm like, well, how do I change that about my personality? Because there is innate personality traits.
Sure.
Too,
Yeah.
but it's like, okay, well, I need to work those muscles. Being in pain for 7 hours on a trail, right?
Yeah.
And just go and you literally get to the point where it's 1 foot in front of the other.
Totally.
1 foot in front of the other for hours.
Yeah.
Like an Ironman, it was 107 degrees, and I'm not a triathlete by any means. I'm not very good, but it was 107 degrees, and I had to walk the marathon. because it was so hot and I was so exhausted. But it was literally just put the foot in front of it, but it took like 15 hours.
Wow.
So you look back on that and you kind of go, well, I got through it by putting one foot
Right.
in front of the other.
Well, you get to that point though where it's like you cross the finish line and you look back and it's like, oh yeah, I did that.
But you
Right?
think of-
Like
yeah, and
that
you-
accomplishment and
Well, you think about not even the accomplishment as much as my frame of reference changed from that. People go, oh, that's so hard. I'm like, it's not hard. Maybe it would have been hard, but I look back, okay, well, 107 degrees, you know, I thought I was going to die,
Yeah.
but I didn't die, right?
Yeah,
So you
yeah,
start
yeah,
to go,
yeah.
no, you got capacity. You just don't know that you have capacity until you push
Yeah.
yourself.
So
So
true.
anyway, I didn't mean to talk about myself that much, but the track stuff, I'm intrigued by it because it's super painful and you showed up every day. So tell me about college. How'd you get into college? What did you have a choice to go to different schools?
Yeah. Ran track through high school. Ended up making it to the state championship all 4 years, whether it through be relays or individual events. And then that senior year of high school, I don't know what it's like now. I'm gonna find out soon because we have a junior of our own. But my dad created like a paper resume with all of my stats, and he just dropped them in the mail to various colleges. And then the phone started to ring, so I went out and visited Colorado State University. I got off the airplane in Fort Collins, and it starts to snow. And
You're from Arizona.
I'm used to saguaro cactuses and maybe seeing a rattlesnake and dust and rocks. And I got off that plane and thought, oh my goodness, it's cold. Toured the school, toured the track, saw the whole facility, met a lot of the athletes and the coaches, and got home a couple days later and told my folks, like, I don't know, it was really cold. I don't know if I could handle the snow. Now I live in Bend, right? So I ended up going to Arizona State University and running track there. Did a couple years, ended up with an injury that kind of took me out. And that was interesting too, just recognizing like I was there to do a job, and as soon as I couldn't do the job, that funding was gone. That scholarship was gone.
Yeah.
So that was kind of eye-opening for me. Being I'm 19, 20 years old, thinking, okay, the world's my oyster. I've got this track thing I'm doing and just living life. And then it was just gone. So that was a little mentally challenging for me.
Tell me about that, just because I think that's, like we've talked about this in other podcasts, that when it's taken away and at that age, it's your identity.
It's your thing, right?
So
It's-
like,
yeah.
how was that transition?
Yeah, it was tough. I would say for months, it was a challenge mentally to try and figure out, okay, what next? And as a 19, 20-year-old kid, the things I went to were my schoolwork. I was an elementary ed major, so I kind of jumped feet first into that, tried to find part-time jobs to get me set up for that field. I started working out at the student union. I picked up some intramural like flag football stuff with some buddies. So I tried to find other ways to stay active, but it was a challenge. Yeah, it was a tough time.
Yeah, no, I've experienced it for more like 12 years.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I know the
Yeah, it's
feeling.
tough.
It was very difficult for me to, and I keep in touch with a lot of my baseball buddies.
Okay.
And we talk about that a lot. Like, it's hard to relate, not relate, but it's hard to explain to somebody who hasn't been through it what that transition is. And honestly, a lot of people in professional sports, they don't ever recover from it. They just kind of, they don't know what to do. But so you went and you became a teacher first?
Yeah, yep.
Okay.
Got done with school and got a teaching job as a third grade teacher. Kind of mid-year, I graduated in December, and there happened to be a job opening in a school in Tempe. Ended up getting that job, so started midway through, which was kind of challenging.
Yeah.
The teacher had left, and so it was like, okay, I'm brand new. I'm coming into this kind of ruckus group, and really quickly recognized that the way to those kids' hearts was to build relationships. So I really worked hard to build that rapport and relationship with that group of kids and with their families, and ended up finishing the year pretty strong.
Yeah.
So did a couple years teaching, and then recognized I wanted a little bit more, wanted to push myself. So I went and got my master's degree. And the following year, I got a job at a middle school in Tempe as like their dean of students. So
Wow. Is that above a principal?
so this one was like called teacher on special assignment. So I was still getting like teacher pay, but I was doing all of the things that an assistant principal would do.
Okay.
It's kind of like the
Discipline?
stepping stone. Lots of discipline. Yeah.
I'll never forget the assistant principal, the vice principal. They were the disciplinarians.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah. My go-tos were make it a great day or not. The choice is yours, and you don't have to be friends, but you need to be respectful. Those were my go-tos, because I'd have kids coming in just volatile, right?
Yep.
Going at each other's throats, and
In middle school's brutal.
middle school girls are brutal. I'm just gonna be honest with you on the Ryan Bundy show. Middle school girls, they are dangerous. So
That's right when that everybody talks about. I have a daughter that's 3. It's like everybody talks about, oh, they're great when they're kids, and then they flip when they're 12 or something.
I'll tell you what, hormones are no joke. Yeah, boys and girls. Yeah. So I did that for 1 year, and then I got a principal job in a little town called Maricopa.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Kind of south of Tempe, south of Chandler. And I did that for 3 or so years, and then got a job up in Bend, so that moved us up here.
As a principal.
Yep.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah.
It's amazing. Building the relationships with the kids was like that. It's like I'm just starting to figure out. Like I got a 6-year-old and a 3-year-old, and I'm like just now starting to understand that part. Like I'm going to be coaching the kids now. We talked about that.
Yeah.
I'm coaching soccer for 5 and 6-year-olds.
Yeah.
Right, and it's like I wasn't excited about it, but now I'm like my brain shift in that, I can help these kids.
Yeah.
Right. And,
Totally.
And you got to be in a relationship with them and help
Totally.
them. So
Yeah.
Are you coaching? You said that
a couple of seasons ago, I did coach our son's flag football team.
That's
So it was 5th graders, and it was good. It was a little challenging at first. There were moments where I felt like I was herding cats, like trying to wrangle all these kids. But ultimately, it was good, and we had a lot of fun. We talked a lot about like life lessons and how to not just have a good time on the football field, but how we treat our teachers in the classroom. I mean, that's my heart, right?
Yeah.
So a lot about respect, a lot about kindness, and just being a good person.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was good. You're gonna have a blast coaching.
No,
Yeah.
I'm actually.
It'll
It's
be
weird.
fun.
I was excited about it. I know it's going to be hurting
Yeah.
around
Totally.
and everything.
Yeah.
But also, being there for my son. I just I put him in soccer last year, and I'm not going to name any names here, but it was just it didn't go well. The first practice, like he'd never played soccer. He's running around, and like the coach didn't even talk to him.
Yeah.
Didn't say anything to him, and I go, I pulled him out, didn't bring him back, and I go, it looks like I'm coaching.
Yeah.
Even though I said I would never coach.
Yeah.
Once I was done with sports,
Same.
I'm like, okay, I'm out. I'm not going to coach again. But yeah, you talked about that because our jobs are super demanding in the late afternoon and evenings and weekends.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, well, how's that going to look?
Right.
And what have you done? Give me some advice, because I stress out about that, because like if you call me and you're a real estate agent and you need something, like it needs to get done. Right.
That is a challenge for sure, because our phone can ring at the drop of a hat, right? You're sitting down to dinner, the phone could ring. You're tucking the kids in at night, the phone could ring. For me, what I've been able to do, I've got a team of agents that are part of my group, and So I've brought some really dynamic, high-producing people on to where if I can't answer my phone, all of our clients know, try one of the other numbers.
Gotcha. You're setting the expectation.
Yep, right up front.
When you're doing a consult with them, are you saying, hey, I have a family, once in a while you might not be able to reach me, but Jacob or...
Totally,
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we've got the whole bio that we go through with them. We talk about our families, we talk about our hobbies. My wife and I took a trip to Europe this last summer to celebrate our 20th anniversary, and I worked really hard to turn my phone off and just funneled everything to the crew, and everything went off without a hitch. And
do you think building the team has been natural for you in that? Because
it's been very organic. Yeah, very organic.
You don't have to convince people to work with you in a way. You just you've learned a lot of skills through the sports, but your principal, you have a lot of skills of team leadership.
Totally.
Right? Because you're leading a whole
Absolutely.
school. But I guess this is a good segue into how you got into real estate, and then we're going to lead into your leadership building this team, because you didn't have a team when we first met. It was just you and your wife, and then maybe a team, an assistant.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
So so tell me the transition, and then let's talk about how you built your team and go from there.
Yeah, transition. Got into real estate. We're about 8 years in now, 7-8 years. And I was starting to get a sense of the tremendous amount of politics and red tape in the public school system. And I don't know if I want to go any deeper into that, but I recognized that a lot of the adults that are in the school system will say something like, let's do what's best for the kids. But many of them are just doing what's best for them. And the kids are a second or an afterthought. And that was really bothersome to me. So I got into real estate so that I could still coach, so I could still educate and still help people with what's undoubtedly the biggest investment that they'll make in their lifetime. So for me, I still love that I can educate. I can sit down and go through paperwork, or I can learn about the property or the house and teach the client that information. So for me, the transition was really smooth. It's a lot of talking, it's a lot of relating, it's a lot of, the relationship piece is really for me what it's all about. Whether we end up at the closing table or not, I want to have a relationship with that person to where they know that I've got their best interest at heart. So for me, the transition was quick. It was easy.
Was it scary? Because
tremendously.
Let's talk. Yeah. You're basically a government employee.
Yep.
With a salary.
And great
it's very
benefits.
difficult. Yeah, it's very difficult to get fired. You have to do something incredibly bad to get fired from those jobs. And it's the paycheck comes in, and you're switching to one of the scariest industries.
Yeah.
Mortgage and real estate.
Yes.
That you could even enter, and you didn't have a side job. You just jumped right in. So.
No, so when I decided to make that move, I can't remember where I heard it or read it, but I heard if you have a plan B, you're always going to rely on that plan B for a little extra income, and you're not going to focus on plan A. So when I made that move, I decided plan A is my only plan, and I'm just going to put my all into it. I'm not going to have a plan B. And I think that is honestly what has helped keep me on track and afloat and still grinding through slow seasons, kind of like the one that we're in. But yes, it was tremendously scary to make that leap because this business is all about connection. It's all about your sphere, and I had none. So I was starting from ground zero, and so it was tough for a little while.
I wanted to take you to, there's so many questions I could talk because I feel it. I've been there. And not only been there when I started, been there several times.
Sure, yeah.
Where before I learned how to, save money in the big times, maybe previously before 10 years ago, it was like, I was just like, sometimes you're just, sleepless nights, man.
For sure. Yeah, because we don't know when the next paycheck will come in,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So yeah, it was tricky at first. I would say it took probably 9-10 months before I started to make some real traction. I was on a team that was selling all new construction homes, which was a tremendous asset to my background.
To get some reps.
Just to get reps, yep, and to learn the ins and outs of a house. So I mean, to this day, I'll walk people through a house and point things out, and it just has stuck. It's that muscle memory. It's right. It's the reps. Yep. Yeah. So did that for a while, and then went out on my own. And after going out on my own, I started to be able to form different bonds and relationships with other realtors in town, and that's how the group just kind of started to grow. So now we're the Montoya group at Engel and Volkers, and there's 4 of us on the team, and my wife does all of our photography. She's an amazing photographer.
Yeah. She do video?
She does not do video.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. No, it seems like it's a whole different deal.
Yeah.
The video and the.
Again, I think she's got her niche, right, and I mean her goal is to do like renovation, home remodel type, the finished project.
Creative side.
Yeah, so she'll work with designers in town and shoot their finished product, and she does a lot of work in San Francisco for some designers that do huge building projects.
Oh, wow.
But no, she's very fine photography, but.
You know, people, you're right about I think we all know there's a huge attrition rate in real estate.
There is.
And it's because people love the houses. Oh, I love selling houses. Then you better learn how to lead generate.
Yeah.
Because we are lead generators, right? At the end of the day, unless you're doing new construction, stuff like that. But it's a tough business. People don't get it.
Yeah.
Like, oh, you're a mortgage guy. Even my friends, oh, you do mortgages. And I'm like, yeah, I do mortgages, but I generate the business, right? Yeah. You're running your own business. So, but how? So it was you and your wife and a TC, and then now you have 2 new agents. But was that recent?
So it was probably about a year and a month or 2 ago that Jacob joined us. About 3 or 4 months ago, Maxwell joined us. Heather's part of our team. She's been with me a couple years now. So yeah, it's the 4 of us. Okay. Yeah.
And so one thing, I work in many different markets, not just Bend.
Right.
Not even a lot in Bend. But what I noticed out of all, because I have everybody on social media and stuff, is that you're the most active on social media as far as video. And you're just the most active.
Yeah.
So you told me before, it's a full-time job. Sometimes.
It's a lot.
It's a full-time job. Is it the full-time job, the video or the content?
Both, but I would also add the consistency piece.
Yes.
That consistency piece, I think, is probably what I meant by it's a full-time job. I'm thinking of the content. I'm getting the camera and the light set up, and I'm doing it consistently. And that consistent piece is what keeps me on your feed. And if there's a couple weeks where I decide to not do it, or I'm out of town or whatever, it's a little bit of a challenge to get back in, right?
Yeah, it's the momentum.
Yeah. So
do you have video banked? We call it banked on my team, where we didn't start until we had a month worth of content.
Yeah.
And then we started.
Yeah.
So then if we skip a week or something,
you still have something.
Yeah, so we're banking content
in
advance. This is brand new to me, and I don't take any credit for it. I've got a lot of guidance from very smart people that have helped me. I just do what I'm told. So just for the record, okay? I'm not here to coach anybody.
Noted.
But I think the consistency piece is tough for anything in general, especially since we're pulled in so many directions. I got to go show a house. You better go show the house.
Right.
I can't get my video in today. So what happened with us is that in my filming, I had this plan to film a certain amount, right? And then it's like, well, we got 4 applications, I got to lock loans,
Yeah.
I got these meetings. And so what I do now is I create, I have a schedule for my content that's blocked on my calendar, and I don't do my videos, and I do them at night.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, because if during the day, it's like there's too much
Totally.
too much chaos.
Totally. Yeah, that's a good idea.
So question for you, and I was gonna do this on Instagram stories is like, people get super creative in these videos? I'm like, that must take forever. So the consistency versus the fanciness of it, like your stuff is really cool, but it's like, I feel like it's consistent. But then there's these people like, wow, they must have had a movie set for that.
Yeah.
But how do you be consistent with that and run your business?
Yeah, I don't know. My stuff is very just kind of cut and dry. I don't have a lot of like fireworks or graphics popping up or anything like that. Again, I try and keep it very short but educational and resourceful for people. And that consistency piece is what makes my phone ring. But I don't have a lot of the glitz and the glamour. That's not me anyway. I'm pretty chill, laid back, and I just want to get content out that can be useful for somebody. Whether it's, hey, the spring season's coming, it's time to fertilize your grass and make sure your windows are clean if you're going to list your house, right? It's just little tips like that. It's not, hey, I'm Matt, call me, right?
Yeah,
like,
totally.
I'm waiting for you to call me. Like, I steer clear from that.
Yeah.
Just
it's authentic, and
it's
that's why
not
I
my,
like it.
yeah.
Because one of the reasons I held off on social media it wasn't because I didn't want to do it. I wanted to do it authentically, without, there's just so many people that walk around in these suits and, they got their super nice car in there, and it's like, what's this about? It's about you? It's about the audience.
Totally.
Right? So I think you do it the right way. So Mike, going back to my question, I probably kind of got sidetracked, is that I personally like consistent, but maybe not as fancy content versus periodic, super cool, fancy stuff. So, I think that a lot of people aren't doing it because they're scared that's not going to be good enough.
Well, and that fancy glitz and glamour post, I don't know, but I would assume it takes some time. So you put that time in, you put that money in, you put a video out, and maybe you don't get the results that you want. That has to be defeating for people. Which then you either rise up and do it again and again, or you think, forget that, I'm going to go on to the next thing.
Yeah.
Right? So I'm with you. I would rather get a message out, be consistent with it, and just get into my routine.
Did you have any fear of what people thought, or were you just closed off from that? That was a big roadblock for me. It's like, people are going to like it. My friends are going to think I'm changed or something, being fake or whatever. I
didn't have social media before I got into this industry. I was a big kind of anti-social media person. But I recognized right away that this was a way to build rapport with people. It was a way to get my face and name and voice out there. I don't necessarily love how I sound or maybe look all the time, but it's what it is. So it's like, people see that when I go to the grocery store, so they're going to see it on their phone too, right? So somebody told me at the very beginning, it's what you look like, it's what you sound like. So you can't change it. You can't, right? So it's just like, just do it. So I got over that real quick. Do you ever have people come
up to you? And because I've heard literally people, hasn't happened to me except for people reaching out to me, calling me, saying it's good, or hey, good job, at least, right? But like, in Bend, do you have anybody go, hey, I saw your video? Or something?
So very early on, I was doing this feature called Standard Feature Saturday. And I might do one this Saturday, so look out. But it was a feature of a house that was standard in the house, and I was marketing that standard feature. And I would do them every Saturday, consistently, right? And summer concert series came out, and Jen and I would be at a concert, and people would be, standard feature Saturday guy.
No way.
Matt, right?
Yeah.
It's like, yeah. So I got to meet a lot of people who knew me through their phone, to just build relationship, right? So
it's funny
it does
how-
happen.
Yeah, no, it's. I didn't buy into it until recently when I started doing it. Is that, people know you before they know you.
Yep.
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 That can be good or bad. Right?
Totally.
Because if you're putting out bad, like, fake stuff,
Totally.
then they're going to know you as that. So the authenticity is super important.
So important.
Yeah. Well, good, man. No, I like it. And that's why I wanted to have you on. One of the biggest reasons is I think that you're the most consistent that I see.
Thanks. Yeah.
Going back to, we could probably edit this out, but I wanted to talk about the grit side of stuff. How would you like to segue into that?
Totally. I mean, I can just, thinking back to athletics, right? High school, college athletics, having the sports psychologist come in and talk to us about visualization.
Yeah, because I went through the same thing.
Yeah.
So we could talk about that. So how would you like to cut this, though?
Yeah, I think we were almost kind of good there. I think you could talk about, you could just say, like, one thing I'm really interested in is sports psychology. And then you could say, like, I know we've talked before about, like, the grit in young athletes now. So maybe let's kind of
cool. Okay, cool. So I want to pivot back a little bit on something we were talking about before.
Sure.
But that's, maybe helped you in your business and build this team, is that something I'm super interested and passionate about is sports psychology. Okay, we talked before that, in college you had a sports psychologist, and just to be totally honest with you, what people tell me when I say, well, put it this way, when people come to me and say, hey Ryan, my son's a catcher and he, can you come help him? Or what are the 3 things you want, with hitting, let's say, for example. And I go, hit off a tee every day at least 50 times. And visualize, get a sports psychologist.
Yeah.
They're like, no, what about batting practice? And I go, well, you're only going to get good at batting practice if you groove your swing and if you visualize it over and over and over and over in muscle memory. So that's the advice I give people. They just look at me like a psychologist. There's nothing wrong with my kid, right?
Totally.
So tell me, let's go back to your experience with it.
Yeah, so at ASU we had a sports psychologist that came in often. I feel like it was once a week, to just sit with us, and they would lead us through this visualization process, and each of us had different events, right? So we were taught to just sit and visualize our event, and the 400 is a tough race, right? It's basically a dead sprint for a lap, but there's some strategy in that. So you would visualize your start, and as you hit that first straightaway, you're extending your stride and extending your arms a little bit to kind of settle into the race. But again, you're doing this as you're sitting on a chair or laying on a yoga mat, to be able to train your brain to be able to see that race. And then when you are on that starting line in real life, you've run that race in your brain dozens and dozens of times in order to train your brain and your muscles to perform the way that you want it to. So for me, it's something that I use with our boys at home. It's something that I talk with our team at work about, to just visualize the transaction, to visualize the process, to walk through a house before you've walked through the house, so that when you walk through it with your client, you know where the light switches are, you know what you want to say about that primary bedroom, you know what you want to say about the backyard. So there's ways that I use visualization in my day-to-day work, even now.
Do you still do it in your morning routine?
I wouldn't say as much, no.
Yeah. But you just do it throughout whenever, like, you visualize it. So, quick, I'll just tell you where my experience was in college. We had a sports psychologist at University of Washington, and one of the things, my strength was athletic ability and tools. My downside was I goofed off. Okay. And so I didn't reach my full potential that I ever could, because, I was having fun. I was playing baseball, having a good time. But I look back, and my coach, I was a starter and had a lot of success. Don't get me wrong. It's just that he goes, you got to see that sports psychology. He kind of joked around. And I'm like, nah, yeah, I get it, but nah, maybe not. And, anyway, I went into pro ball and a couple years with the Blue Jays, they finally go, hey, we're sending you a sports psychologist. So I went back to the UW. They sent me on the off season.
Okay.
And did these visualization stuff and relaxation. And he
Yeah.
walked me through it for 3 months. And then went to spring training. Totally different human being in general. Like I was calm,
Wow.
like automatic, autopilot, dominant.
That's cool.
What I did is I was 22 years old or 21 or 22. I didn't even understand that you can't stop. So I was like, okay, I figured it out. And then, right? And so we're going to talk about the grit factor.
Yeah.
But the grit factor is there is no stopping ever. People,
Yeah.
you don't arrive. You're either growing or you're, and I want to put that out there that I failed because I got to the point where it was working and it was awesome, and that I didn't understand. It's not that I didn't want to. I just didn't know.
Sure. Yeah.
I go, oh, okay, well, I got it.
Yeah.
Well, no, I was 22 years old. Nobody told me that you have to do it basically forever.
Yeah.
So now I do it every morning.
Okay. Yeah.
I visualize my day, or if I'm struggling with something, I'll visualize, what I'm going to do to overcome it and what it's
Cool.
going to be on the other side.
Yeah.
Because it's magic.
Yeah.
It's magic.
It really is. I feel like the mind is probably our most powerful tool that doesn't get used enough. And that grit is so important. And our youngest son was in kindergarten, and there was a little bit of brain curriculum that was starting to be taught, and they were starting to teach kids grit, which I thought was so cool.
And this is at what age?
He was 6.
In public school?
Yeah. Yeah. I feel like it may have been a pilot thing or something because I haven't seen it since.
Okay. And they're not, so I don't know because my kids aren't
Yeah.
in their kindergartens, my oldest. So,
Okay.
But these are things I need to know about
Yeah.
because, why aren't they teaching it?
Yeah. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know.
But they should be doing it in any school. Mental toughness.
It should be.
It's the most important.
It should be taught everywhere. I feel like kids are not physically pushed. They're not challenged enough right now. I think there's a lot of take the easy way out right now.
Do you think that's a leadership problem, or is that just society in general?
I would say